and thank you for your work during week 1, and I apologize for the lateness of this video for week 2. I am suffering from a cold, as you may hear from the stuffiness in my voice, and I've been hoping that it would go away in time for me to make a video for you and not be quite so stopped up and so tired looking on the camera. But we're now approaching the end of the week, and I wanted to get something up before the weekend was out. So I'm sorry you'll have to live with my stuffiness, and thankfully the viruses won't transfer across the video wires, at least none of the biological viruses. Our topics this week include capital punishment, as well as terrorism and violence and different issues surrounding that. I hope that you found the readings this week a little more accessible than the ones last week. I hope the ones last week weren't that bad, actually. I'm pleased in general with what I've been reading online, and I hope to have some comments up by tomorrow for the class, as well as your grades and points, because that's an important part of the class as well. I wanted to point out for you a book with regard to the terrorism aspect of our class. There is a book called Philosophy in a Time of Terror, which is a discussion between Borodori and two philosophers of our modern day, Jürgen Habermas as well as Jacques Derrida. And both of them come from a sort of standpoint of looking at things in what we might call modern to postmodern ways, but because of that means they can come at it from entirely different aspects. Derrida likes to try to take things apart and find out what's underneath them. A key word for Derrida is deconstruction, and not destruction, mind you, but deconstruction. Find out how things are put together and why and what implications that has. And Habermas takes a somewhat more traditional role in philosophy. He doesn't take things apart in quite that way, but he does look for nuances and meanings and interpretations that can be layered on top of different events, and why certain events become iconic. And certainly when we talk about things like the 9/11 tragedies, we do have something that's iconic, something somewhat more iconic than other terrorist activity might be. So we can look at issues like that as well. When we talk about the death penalty, there are lots and lots of resources out there in addition to the different articles that are in our book today. Some things to keep in mind, of course, is that the United States is one of the few Western powers, one of the few nations in what we might call the developed world that still uses the death penalty on a regular basis, if at all. That sometimes causes tensions with our allies who don't want to extradite people to the United States if they are going to face the death penalty because of opposition to that. And the United States itself has gone sort of back and forth at different times with regard to whether or not to have the death penalty, and different states do that as well. So we might ask the question on an ethical basis, why would the same crime committed in Delaware or in Texas or in Washington State or in Michigan or in any other state be given a different penalty, a different kind of punishment, not just in terms of more years or less years, but a very different kind of penalty. Is that really justice? Is that really ethical? Is that really fair? And we've had different issues with regard to our own Supreme Court looking at methods of the death penalty. Do they in fact constitute cruel and unusual punishment, which is constitutionally disallowed? The unusual part can be dealt with fairly quickly, because in fact we look through history and see death penalty as being in fact a very usual punishment for many people in many places. But the cruel part becomes more of an issue, and that continues to be debated and discussed. So I look forward to seeing what you have to say on these issues, and I hope that my cold will go away so that I can post up something a little bit sooner this next week. I'm taking my Dayquil and my Theraflu and everything else, and I hope to be up to top speed before long. Thanks.